Hey everyone, welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Bold and Beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in.
After yelling at Lee for sparing Luna, Ridge walks into Bill's to face Luna and say that this will end today. Luna told Finn, who was shocked, that he would be a grandfather. Finn wanted to put her in jail, but Hope asked Deke for help with the design. Finn is sitting in his office, attempting to understand that Luna is having Will's baby. She asks for a referral to an OBGYN. He suggests the individual in jail. How is she still not in jail? She says it's because of Bill. The Spencer heir is pregnant. Ridge and Taylor stormed into Lee's office and wanted to know why she did what she did. She thought Luna could be saved. Ridge gets it, but she could have still called the police. Lee thought she could help Luna become the person she wanted to be. But you can't change her. She is angry and has stabbed her in the back. Taylor says that anyone might have seen this coming and reminds her of how dangerous Hayes is. Ridge said that Lee made a stupid judgment. She's living it up in Casaville right now. Lee says that there is nothing they can say that she hasn't already said to herself. She is sorry. She messed up big time. Instead of taking her away, she should have saved her at the hospital. Ridge thinks that Luna will have her baby in prison. He doesn't care what Katie and Bill say. Bill picks up the phone at home and tells Katie Luna that she is almost ready for the paternity test. She suggests that Bridget give it. He thinks he caused the disaster. She says Lee is to fault. He blames himself more, and she agrees that some of his guilt is justified. Bill says she makes things clear for him. He needs her. Katie is curious about where Luna is, so she goes to look. They look for her and find she's gone, which makes Bill stress out. Katie is sure she hasn't done anything stupid. Luna arrives. She tells him that she has to see her dad. Finn comes in and barks at Bill. He can't believe he brought Luna back into his house. What is he thinking? They guarantee Finn that there will be a paternity test, and they will make sure that it can't be changed. Luna thinks everyone should be happy. This little one is going to change everyone's life. Finn says this doesn't change anything. He needs to protect his wife and kids and keep her away from them. When her dad says he wants her in jail, Luna pouts. Bill tells him that she is going to have his grandson. Luna should be in jail, but they need some time to figure things out. Ridge and Taylor rush in, angry that Luna is living at Billy's house. He says that the craziness will end today, and that she will be put in jail. Hope makes fun of Deke at Forrester for his new strange man. She thinks it's great that he came back and moved in with someone. She has all the nice feelings. Her brother is happy that her line has come back. She needs a new look for HFTF. Eric, Ridge, and Zend are all busy, and it's hard to work with Thomas. Deke can picture how hard it would be. She thinks it's a shame because Thomas is so good at what he does. Deke is sure that other creative designers would want to work with her to assist HFTF move forward. They talk about dramatic patterns and look at designs. He says he's sorry if he gets too excited when he talks about fashion. She says that this is the right spot to do it. He says he's ready to get into the business, and asks her if she can assist him find a job at the family business. She would be happy to help him. He wants to move up in the world and thinks his skills will take care of everything. She knows for sure that it's true. He wants to assist every design get better. She says that fashion and individuals change throughout time. HFTF could use a little more urban style, maybe? They discuss about who has sent in portfolios, and Hope says she is looking at all of them without telling anyone who they are. They agree to have dinner, and she leaves for a meeting. Luna Nozawa shows that Ridge was right. A simple disguise can get past a billionaire's protection. Ridge tells Brooke that Steffi and Luna are in trouble at Bill's house on B&B. Brooke says the security is strong, but Luna leaves with a cap and sunglasses on. Ridge's biggest fears for his daughter's safety come true. Spoilers for October. Luna Nozawa shows Ridge is right. Billionaire's security is broken by a simple disguise. TLDR. In recent episodes of The Bold and the Beautiful, Luna Nozawa walked out of Bill Spencer's mansion wearing only sunglasses and a baseball cap. This shows that Ridge Forrester's worries about his daughter Steffi's safety are completely valid, and Brooke Logan's claims about security seem silly. Ridge's darkest fear. It's easy to see why Ridge Forrester is scared. To be honest, panic isn't even close to how this father should be feeling. While Brooke Logan stood there calmly telling him that Bill Spencer had everything under control, and that security was supposedly in place to keep dangerous killer Luna Nozawa from getting out, viewers were shocked when the same psychopath she was talking about just walked out of Bill's front door. What about the mask? A baseball cap and dark sunglasses. That's all there is. A confessed double killer was able to break into a billionaire's so-called security system with only that. Luna did not dig into the sewers or plan a dramatic prison break. That would have made a great movie. She didn't need any help or special tools. The woman who killed Tom and Hollis by giving them too many drugs, kidnapped Steffi Forrester, and has been using Steffi's picture as a target to practice her shooting skills, walked out wearing things you can find at any gas station. If Ridge wasn't already freaking out, he should be now, because his daughter is walking right into a fatal trap and no one seems to care. Bill Spencer's security is a complete joke. Let's talk about the big issue. Bill Spencer, the powerful CEO of Spencer Publications, popularly called Dollar Bill, has easily coordinated corporate takeovers and crushed his competitors. However, he seems unable to protect his own house from a known threat. Someone got it right when they said, Bill and Katie are the new Dumb and Dumber. There is constant surveillance, and Lunatic just goes out of the house in another weird disguise. That's a joke. And they are right. This is the same Bill Spencer who says he has money, connections, and power. But Luna Nozawa just shown that his mansion might as well have a revolving door. Where are the guards? Where is the watching? Where is there any protection that would keep a dangerous criminal from going for a leisurely walk in the afternoon? Brooke told Ridge that security was there, but where exactly? Luna's short excursion to Bill's house showed that it is about as safe as a public park. What's the worst part? Bill doesn't even see Luna as the horrible killer she is. He thinks she's a troubled person who needs to be saved instead of a sociopath who should be in jail because he's so lonely and thinks he's a hero. This man used his wealth and power to get a confessed murderer out of jail and put him under his protection. Now we are all seeing what that choice has done. Steffi Forrester steps into a nightmare. Luna alive, here, daring to breathe the same air. You can't be here, Steffi hissed, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. You're not allowed to breathe here. The words were absurd and they did not matter. Steiner's training, the countless debates about defamation and the judicial systems and whatever police report had once marked Luna as dead. None of that shelved the rawness of the moment. Finn stood at Steffi's side, and even his presence, the man who had become her anchor, who had taught her how to make the delicate, brave choices that marriage demanded, could not entirely bridge the chasm. Finn's hand found her arm in a small, grounding pressure. His eyes were thunderstorm gray, and filled with the kind of incredulous tenderness that made Steffi's temper flare and her vulnerability rush hot and immediate through her. Steph, he whispered, breathe. Don't say anything you'll regret. If only breathing could reroute what had already slithered out of her mouth. Luna outlined the pain she had endured, or perhaps it was a version of her pain. When someone re-enters your life after being declared dead, you have to wonder if you're being handed the truth or a talisman forged from lies and necessity. She moved with an exhausted fluidity, like a woman who'd spent months learning what surfaces could be trusted. I had to get away, Luna began in that voice that sounded like someone reading their own story for the first time, and deciding which parts to leave out. I thought it was the only way. But her words, tender and fractured, did not melt Steffi. Instead they coagulated into more accusations. The rational parts of the world, the police, the press, the forensics, would demand answers and documents and the truth. Steffi's body demanded retribution. The line between wanting justice and wanting revenge blurred until there was no longer any day or night. Only a hunger for rectification. You left, Steffi said, and the words were simpler but they drove through the back of her throat like a nail. You left Will. You left me to be the one who had to explain his absence. You let them think you were gone. You let Will grow without answers. How could you? Her voice rose, not loud in decibels but in emotional volume. That muffled, terrible thing made the hair on her arm stand up and the muscle in her cheek twitch. She wanted to rattle Luna until she made everything right. The world had been rearranged by Luna's absence, and Steffi had spent that time rearranging the world around the empty spaces. Luna inhaled, slow and deliberate. I was scared, she admitted. I didn't feel safe. There were people who wanted to hurt me. I couldn't let them find me, not then. If Luna sounded like someone offering an apology, it was a measured apology. If Luna sounded like someone justifying betrayal, it was also that. Then you should have died, Steffi said, and the sentence landed like an ugly coin between them. It wasn't just the bitterness of abandonment. It was the sense of being robbed of a right. The right to mourn, to memorialize, to have a truth to point to when nights were hardest. While other women had chosen to make peace with absence, to fold it gently into the life they continued to live, Steffi had been forced into mourning that had a hollow center because there was no body to bury. Grief had its rituals, and deprived of them, she had made do with vengeful, private rituals of her own. You were supposed to be punished, she said, not really wanting it to be said aloud. You were supposed to be out of Will's life. She imagined a calendar where every day Luna had been gone was a theft. Every missed milestone for Will, every scraped knee, every first day at school, every little triumph he'd celebrated without his mother. They were all the kind of petty cruelty that sets people's blood to boiling. Finn swallowed, and his jaw did a small, decisive movement that betrayed his attempt to stay neutral. He, more than anyone else, understood how grief could warp into obsession. He squeezed Steffi's arm, a plea both tiny and enormous. The porch felt suddenly smaller. People's faces were close enough to read like headlines. Rich with the look of a man trying to steady a ship in storm. Morality and stability wrestling with the reality of a woman who had been presumed dead. Taylor's hands fluttering like the wings of a bird that wants to care but fears the beak. Hope's face an unreadable map of shock that veered between sympathy and suspicion. And then Will appeared. Will with his reckless, tender heart and the messy, idealistic way he had always loved wildly. He stood at the threshold, caught between the world he had grown into and the woman who had once been his mother, and now was some mythic return. Steffi had always been the fierce, gritted-teeth protector. She'd promised herself that she would make sure Will never needed to fear that which had taken him from her. Seeing Will look at Luna was like seeing a thin, fragile thread stretched across a canyon. Will was younger than the years he'd been alive. His face had the earnestness of someone still learning how the world balanced cruelty and mercy. His mouth parted and then closed, and when he took a step forward, the movement was careful, as if he were approaching a wild animal. "Mom," he said, voice a question and a plea. He had so many rights to his confusion, to all of it, and Steffi's chest constricted with the knowledge that whatever she did now would echo through the rest of Will's life. She wanted to shout at him to run, to gather every scrap of his childhood, and bolt out of the house until he could understand the labyrinth of adult choices. She wanted, oddly and fiercely, to protect Luna from whatever the Forrester wrath would mete out. And that tug was a small betrayal within her own bones. Loving Will twisted her logic. Being his defender meant sometimes being his enemy. "Don't," she said, too sharply, then softer as if trying to tamp the flame she'd ignited. "Not now. We need answers." Luna's gaze landed on Will and softened. She moved as if to step closer and then faltered, the line of her body showing the battle between want and restraint. "I know I have a lot to explain," she said, and there was a tiny tremor at the edge of her voice like a thread fraying. There were reporters somewhere beyond the hedges. The town is always hungry for its own blood. And Steffi could feel the circled gaze of imagined cameras. She thought of the headlines that would come. "Mother returns. Scandal at Forrester." The thought made her throat close. She had endured the limelight's cruelties, the petty, venomous tongues that thrived on others' grief. And if Luna's return set the tabloids ablaze, every open wound in their household would be picked and pried. "Why now?" Taylor asked, her voice fragile with the same maternal need to heal and to know. Luna's hands twisted in her jacket pockets. There was a tremor of humility suddenly apparent that had been absent in her initial swagger. "Because I couldn't pretend anymore." Her voice was small, and for the first time there was an honesty that cut through Steffi's anger like a keen blade. "I wanted to be there for Will. I wanted to tell him I loved him." The confession was simple, perhaps real. Steffi recognized the shape of it and hated herself for the way her heart ached at that admission. For the way every mother in the world must have loved before they judged. But the past is not an innocent thing to unpack. There were accusations, the old rumors that had never quite died. That Luna had been involved in schemes, that her disappearance had been part of a dangerous plan, that she'd betrayed people she had never truly understood. Steffi's mind flashed. Those nights when the house felt empty and she had lain awake listening for memories that might be fake. The nights when she'd told herself to be grateful for the life she had and the family she'd built around the empty chair at the table. Everyone had to decide whether Luna's return was salvation, or a summons of trouble. "Why didn't you tell anyone you were alive?" Steffi demanded, venom masked in civility. "Did you want us to suffer?" The sentence came out sharper than she intended and Luna flinched as if struck. There was an ache there that made Steffi's anger wobble. For a flicker she saw not the intruder, but a woman who had been preyed upon by a world that often asks victims to vanish quietly rather than rage. Finn had the steadiness of a man who had been in too many storm fronts to be stunned into silence. He moved forward and didn't block Steffi but offered what protection he could by being present. "We need to get you somewhere private," he said to Luna, voice low and practical. "We can figure this out." She nodded, grateful and weary, and Ridge stepped in to offer the Forrester guest room with the awkward hospitality of someone who wants to be noble despite the mayhem swelling in their hallway. As they moved inside, Steffi lingered on the porch and watched the tiny caravan of two women moving toward the threshold of the house that had once been Luna's anchor, and then a mausoleum of memory. She wanted to run after them, to demand more, to tear the truth into threads and make Luna hand over the map of her life, but she stayed where she was and let the door close between them with a sound like a verdict. Alone for a moment, outside the concentric circles of concern, Steffi let herself feel the vertigo of possibility. That Luna meant to stay, that she wanted to be a mother again, that she might be dangerous not because she was violent, but because she might unravel everything they'd attempted to build. Inside the house, voices were quieter, laden with the gravity of what it meant for a child to meet a mother after years of absence. The way joy warps into grief when it collides with the truth. Will's hands were small in his pockets. He looked at Luna as if trying to remember the shape of a dream. Steffi imagined telling him to be cautious, to hold his heart lightly as if it were a glass ornament that could shatter if handled too roughly. She told herself to be better than the instinct that had made her shout those words. The threat that now sat like a stain she couldn't wash out. Everything in the Forrester house had been designed to feel safe. Whether that safety was real or an elaborate fiction, it had created a set of rules for their lives. Luna's presence was a breach. It invited chaos and demanded reckoning. The truth would have to be told, but for now, the air hung with the kinds of secrets that did not like to be rushed. Steffi's hand reached for Finn's on the armchair, and found it with a grip that said she needed an ally to hold the line between reason and the hunger to punish. Outside, the evening sky bruised into violet. Steffi's anger cooled to something more complex. Sorrow braided tightly with a fierce, brittle protectiveness. She had a fragile son whose life had been splintered and remade. She had a husband who sat across from her with worry etched into his forehead. She had parents who would want to archive every detail of the returning woman's explanation. And there was Luna, who had come back like a comet, leaving behind a wake that would take weeks, months, years to navigate. Steffi's threat, that monstrous, "I will kill you, Luna," drifted like a bad dream in her mind. Something she could not fully claim as herself yet also could not forget. It had been an honest, ugly confession of how deep her anger ran. She resolved, with a calm that contrasted the earlier eruption, to channel that anger into something less permanent than blood and more useful than spectacle. She would find out the truth, she would make sure Will was safe, and she would make choices that, if not noble, would be smart. But underneath that rational decision-making lay the thin thread of watchfulness. Steffi would be the sentinel at the gate of Will's heart, and she would not let that heart be wounded again without exacting a reckoning for it. The storm had arrived at their doorstep in a petite, impossibly human form, and the Forrester household would be tested as never before. There would be meetings with lawyers, conversations with police, 1,000 private phone calls and accusations whispered into the darkness. There would also be quiet nights where Will might reach for a different hand in the night and find it empty. Steffi forced herself to breathe, to think, to prepare for the long fight she knew this would become. Love, after all, is a battlefield, and she had learned how to be brutal in the defense of those she loved. Luna could stay, she told herself, but only if she proved she was not a current that would sweep Will away into danger. If she failed, if the woman who had returned with a soft, tremulous voice was less a mother than a menace, then Steffi would be there ready. Ready to fight, ready to expose, ready to protect Will at any cost. As the night wrapped itself around Los Angeles and the Forrester lights flickered on like beacons, Steffi found herself at once smaller and more absolute. She watched Luna and Will sitting together on the living room couch, speaking in small, awkward sentences, and felt every human contradiction writ large in her chest. Pity and contempt, hope and fear, a longing for reconciliation tangled with the desire for justice. She had shouted the most monstrous sentence she could imagine, and now she had to live with the consequences of its echo. She had been the storm incarnate earlier, face flushed and voice cracked, but now she drew a firmer, colder line and promised herself she would not be reduced to violence. She would be strategic. If Luna was an angel who had been lost, and then returned to reclaim what was hers, the house would bear witness. If Luna was a siren of chaos, Steffi would unmask her. The night crackled with possibility, and between the hush and the electricity of returning lives, Steffi realized that the real fight had only just begun. There were reporters somewhere beyond the hedges. The town is always hungry for its own blood. And Steffi could feel the circled gaze of imagined cameras. She thought of the headlines that would come. Mother returns. Scandal at Forrester. The thought made her throat close. She had endured the limelight's cruelties, the petty, venomous tongues that thrived on others.